Adam, what did you say? If you could wave a magic wand and one pain point that you experience let's just call it, maybe not on the construction site, but perhaps your day to day as a vetting these solutions, what would it be?
In the vetting process or the actual challenge?
I mean, let's apply it to the construction process on site.
I think that there is a lack of really end-to-end understanding of the supply chain in construction. That with a tool that does everything, but provides in a way that we can drive it for our least technologically capable users.
You evaluate innovations that are worth pursuing versus those that are just like hype or perhaps not quite what they make out to be.
I think we always look for a solution that has a problem rather than sort of a solution without a problem. Oftentimes, this is one of the things that's frustrating for IT executives, is that we often get cold calls from companies who have solutions that we have not identified yet as a problem, or we have identified it as a problem, but not the most critical problem. I think that alignment becomes really a crucial first step before we even have a conversation.
How else do you measure ROI?
I do measure it based on, hard cost. So, is there a hard cost with software licensing? Are we removing something? For example, we're moving to different takeoff tools. So we're eliminating software licenses for older tools that we've used for a while. Is there a savings of time that we can actually calculate? And if so, what's the hourly rate of that we charge out to jobs? We have some nice charge out rates, so that's really helpful. And then is there a savings in terms of schedule or scope or something like that?
How many solutions do you think approach you like every perhaps day, if it's substantial, a week, like every top solutions?
Every week it's gotta be 20. I mean,
here's a question maybe people will find interesting. What methods do these people use that make you go, I'm going to check that one? Is it like an email that's like, oh, it's got a funny subject line that makes you want to look at it?
Funny subject lines never get me.
No.
Also, if I know that that's a spreadsheet, if that's a template from Salesforce, I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah.
How do you know? How do you know it's?
They're very canned. And then also there are some people who really are not good at it yet and have not, they're like, okay, they have the brackets. It's like insert name here.
Oh yeah.
Insert name here. Like, oh, really?
How is technology actually used in AEC? In corporate innovations, we explore the innovation and implementation procedures used by those who actually use the tech on a day-to-day basis. Before we get started though, if you're a startup founder or operator responsible for innovation in your company, or you want a deeper, more insightful look into technology in AEC, you won't want to miss our newsletter. From deep dives into particular technologies such as AI, robotics, design, software, and so on. Hot takes from investors betting big in AEC technology, and advice on building tech companies, including the stories and takeaways of the most successful AEC technology founders. Head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today to get this exclusive material straight to your inbox. And now for the episode. Okay, Adam. So thanks for coming. We're going to dive into Boh Bros' innovation process. But before that, could you tell us what your role is there and what your day-to-day looks like?
So I was talking to Owen and Martin earlier, and I said, I think this is the hardest question to answer of all the questions that we discussed, because it doesn't seem like I have any 2 days that are the same. As you know from my title, it's quite diverse. I do process, I do audit. I also do IT and innovation as part of the package. So I asked, I did a prompt in Microsoft Copilot. I said, I'm going on a podcast for technology construction company leaders. They've asked me for a normal day and review my calendar for the past 6 months and tell me what I've done.
Oh, wow.
And it gave me 5 things: collaboration and coordination, project management and planning, technical support and troubleshooting, vendor and client interactions, and training and development.
That's a
If that's really what I've done, I'm pretty happy with it.
Yeah. Thanks for doing the work for us.
Yes,
Thank you, Pilot.
Did you follow up with like, no, now tell me what I really did?
No. I really don't want to know, Owen.
Okay, interesting.
Hey, Adam, so to set the scene a little bit, can you tell us a bit about what Boh Bros is and size-wise, what do you do,
Sure.
type of projects?
Absolutely. We're about a $500 million a year in revenue company, so that puts us solidly in the middle of construction companies in the United States. We do several different scopes of work. Primarily, we're a heavy civil construction company. We work a lot in Louisiana and the Gulf South. We have a big marine division. We do marine pilings and cofferdams. We also do a lot of bridges, underground utilities. And we also have a subsidiary that does vertical construction, including higher education, K-12 education, healthcare, and as well as a really fun project we just completed. We did interior renovations to the Louisiana Superdome in preparation for the Super Bowl this last year.
Nice.
So that was a 4-year project and very exciting and interesting to see all the things we were able to do.
Okay. What was there any interesting technology you guys used in that particular project?
So we really, one of the things that was a big challenge was logistics, as you might imagine, getting in and out of that building. So we spent a lot of time thinking about our logistical process, and we used a couple of tools to coordinate that. There's a product out of the UK called Voyage Control that I think they're out of the UK still.
Yeah.
They have a really great logistics tool for coordinating deliveries and getting supplies on site at the right time and the right coordination. We use them a lot for constrained job sites, and I think that they're really one of the best in that regard. And I know their founder James is looking sort of more broadly at supply chain. And if you had to say what's one of the areas that I think we probably ought to all be worried about, it's supply chain. Not the least of which is challenges of which are all the new tariffs that the United States government seems to be interested in now. But also just all of the disruptions that we've seen over the past several years, and how tight supply chains have gotten, and how that's impacted construction. Small, relatively small challenges become really large. The delivery challenges in Baltimore after the Key Bridge disaster, and the Panama Canal backup. All of those sorts of things really impacted material delivery, and that impacts schedule, and that impacts cost fundamentally, particularly for private developers who are using cash that they have as if we can save the carrying costs for them with better supply chain management, I think that represents a substantial value add and potentially a strategic advantage.
Okay, so speaking of voyage control, as you mentioned, when did you come across them, and what was the vetting process to adopt a solution like that?
So the great thing was that we started it with one of our projects at a university here locally in New Orleans, Tulane University, and we had a project where we had to crane every bit of material over another building, because it was, the only access was an alley behind the work site. And so we, the field team and I got together, and we started looking at potential programs that would fit that need. And the field team developed and brought forward 3 or 4 different suggestions. And, that group of people have since become my community of practice for IT. So we have IT um, sort of a digital transformation group that meets monthly, where we get together and we talk about the kinds of things that are challenges for the field and bringing those solutions to those specific challenges, both, them uncovering it, but also me uncovering it. And then, really utilizing it on a job and not as much of a pilot as much as let's go full tilt for one job and see if it makes sense. Because sometimes with pilot, you don't really get the engagement. And we've done that. And, for good and for bad, we've had some success and we've had some not so good experience.
So on this one, how long did it take you from like someone spotting it and suggesting it to implementation?
I think that this was a relatively quick one because we did have such a specific and pressing need. It was a couple of months, which I think was pretty good. And, even
Hey listeners, I want to take a quick break to remind you about the Bricks Bytes newsletter. If you're interested in learning about the technology shaping the future of construction, you won't want to miss the valuable insights we share each week. To get this exclusive content delivered straight to your inbox, head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today. Link is in the show notes. Back to the show.
And we gauged sort of what's the risk for data. We gauged what's the security protocols in place. And, given that it was, coordination of materials deliveries, we, didn't have to ask for a SOC 2 Part 2 kind of certification. But we did, we do have a set of questions and around cybersecurity and processes and also business continuity. One of the things about living in New Orleans is that business continuity is always front of mind. Our Katrina experience taught us well, and we have very, very well tested business continuity and disaster recovery plans and processes.
Adam, how much would you say, or where you mentioned there that the problems come from site, and then you have you meet with the management team once to discuss, and then perhaps start scouting for technology. Would you say that in like the requests are always at a site level, or are they do they also come from like maybe strategic business goals that might not necessarily originate from site, but it's like a target that wants to be achieved at a higher level?
So it comes from 3 different, I think 3 different areas of orbits in the solar system. If you can use that analogy. One is the site, which I think is, we often find the best solutions on the ground with the site. Obviously, they know the business, they know what the workflow is, and they do the best at identifying requirements. They don't always know what the solutions are, but they know the requirements really well. The second is, sort of coming from me understanding and interpreting the strategic goals process. One of the things that we're actively concerned about and thinking about is in vertical construction, the submittal process. The submittal review process is something that's done by relatively junior assistant project managers, and it takes an incredible amount of time, and it is incredibly frustrating. The APMs I talk to, they absolutely hate when they have door hardware specifications, because it takes literally days to compare the submittal to the specification. Is it the right hinge? Is it the right screw for this hinge? Oh my goodness, just absolutely maddening. It's very painful. So this is actually where I think AI is going to help us a great deal, because that's what it's quite good at, is going for that first pass and summarizing where there are challenges and then digging in deeper with the humanness. The second sort of spot in orbit is associated important groups who often are pushing the technology And, you wouldn't think they would come from here, but safety has been a real driver of technology for us. And not just, and 3 or 4 years ago, you would have said wearables. Of course, I don't think anybody's really talking about wearables that much anymore. It was kind of a passing fad, mostly because the people didn't want to wear them. And so
Yeah.
they got a little nervous. They're like, what are you tracking exactly? Um, and so, safety and quality has actually been really a great driver for us, because they also have some really great data and they know what drives the data. And I think that that's really important. I think, I think safety in particular has been thinking very carefully about what are the ways that we can look at leading indicators and they not just, recordable injuries, but also, what's the right number of walkthroughs? What's the right number of near misses? What's the right number of observations that we should be getting in safety area per job? And, what does that look like? And how do we coordinate, evaluate a safety culture? I was at a conference this week on operational excellence, and they said, one of the best predictors of operational excellence and profit is a great culture. I was like, okay, that's great, but how do you measure that? How do you know that? How do you know we walk the job and we know, oh, great. Okay, so that's not particularly replicable. So how do we replicate that across the organization, and how do we make that more effective? So I think that's going to be one of the interesting challenges, but I do feel like safety has some of the data and some of the ideas to push that forward, in terms of, what are they looking at, and quality as well. Quality, I think, is an area that we're going to see a lot of work in. One of the technologies that we're using in quality are fixed total stations. We're working on
Well, they
on
are
the site
fixed.
a fixed total station, like in place. So we have a total station that is pointed only at a flood wall that we were working next to see whether it is whether it's moving at all. Basically, is there any deformation? If there's deformation, then we stop work and we determine where we can work safely, because if we're deforming a flood wall, then we have a problem. Very funny. I saw that also. I was traveling this last summer with my wife in Portugal, and we were walking through, I believe it was Porto, and they had a total station focused on a particularly old and precariously built building. I think they were actively monitoring. So, I think that there's some things. And then obviously the third thing, and this is a very long answer to a very short question. The third thing is strategic initiatives like submittals. I think that's, that while that also comes out of the field, it has been a strategic initiative as well, coming out of the conversations with the executive team, and what is it that we really ought to be focused on, and that's really one of them.
Okay, so have you got some tech stack for submittal process?
We're actually we partnered with an alpha round VC backed firm to develop it with us. So we've been doing it sort of manually through ChatGPT teams, and but we're going to start working more directly with this company, and it's sort of been an interesting journey working with them. That we arrived together at a conference and just had a really good conversation, and we aligned on the goal. And, they understood what the challenge was, and we had the challenge. And I think that marriage it was probably 3 days of conversation. We met at the conference. We had several different conversations through Zoom meetings, actually more Google Meet. By the way, if you want tips, I know this is a question for later, but one tip for up and coming venture backed firms is get a Zoom account.
Really?
So use Google Meet. Like it's a flag for folks. They're like,
Actually, that's very
Really?
true. That's a good insight because some, even we spoke to Martin, we couldn't send documents to them via Google, and they said do that to
Mm.
Microsoft.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Mhm.
So on this submit process, so the firm that you engaged with, is it? So this sounds like a love from the first sight, and then probably built through the relationship,
Mhm.
things clicked. But did you consider other companies in this process, or that was just, as I said, love from the first time?
We were looking at the people who could execute the most quickly, and we looked at other people in the space. But we also felt like we had the opportunity to define something early and define it in the way that we wanted to define it. I think that there's one of those things that, as you get in a little bit earlier, you have more opportunity to influence the direction of the product and make it a little bit more like what we want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great.
which we also consider a competitive advantage in two different ways. One is obviously, there are these great, graphs, and I don't remember where I found it, but the differential profit realized by getting in early with a technology rather than waiting, where it's actually before it becomes table stakes. Let's put it that way. And then the second is that if we define it based on our processes, then other companies have to default to our process rather than us to theirs.
Adam, what did you say? If you could wave a magic wand and one pain point that you experience let's just call it, maybe not on the construction side, but perhaps your day to day as a vetting these solutions, what would it be?
In the vetting process or the actual challenge?
I mean, let's apply it to the construction process on site.
I think that there is a lack of really end-to-end understanding of the supply chain in construction. That with a tool that does everything, but provides in a way that we can drive it for our least technologically capable users. Like one of the things that really is a core element of our supply chain are small trucking companies. So 3 to 5 dump trucks. These folks often send us Excel sheets for their bills. If that, some of them still type them. And so, there's a real technology gap. And they're a critical component of the supply chain. So understanding how many trucks are available per day becomes a real critical thing. If we're doing a massive underground utility project and we're delivering aggregate or we're delivering asphalt, we really need to understand what that number looks like. And, it's also a big part of our compliance process for those big projects, because those companies tend to also fulfill our disadvantaged business credit. So we need to utilize them. So, I mean, those kinds of tools that are easy, but also help us get insight into those elements of the supply chain that aren't necessarily obvious. I think that's an area that I think is really critical.
Is voyage control tackling this issue somehow?
They're moving in that direction. James and I talk a couple of times a year.
Okay, very good.
You-
Adam, how do you evaluate innovations that are worth pursuing versus those that are just like hype or perhaps not quite what they make out to be?
I think we always look for a solution that has a problem rather than, sort of a solution without a problem. Oftentimes, this is one of the things that's frustrating for IT executives, is that we often get cold calls from companies who have solutions that we have not identified yet as a problem, or we have identified it as a problem, but not the most critical problem. I think that alignment becomes really a crucial first step before we even have a conversation. Although I have to say, I do admit to taking a few calls just to see what people are doing, because I'm curious. And
Yes.
Yeah,
that's
tap
the way
your
I've
finger on the
sometimes.
pulse, right?
Well, yeah, you need to see 3 to 5 years out, and I don't know what 3 to 5 years out looks like. I thought I knew, but I think generative AI has kind of turned some of that stuff up on top of its head, and so I think we've got some new things to think about.
Yeah. So one thing is to know your problems and to tackle them with tech, perhaps. But another one is to see how can one improve based on the tech that is available, perhaps, right? So I guess there needs to be a balance to do those two things. I wanted to ask earlier. You said that you have a great data, and that was with the relation to um, health and safety, I think, and quality.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to ask, how do you? And that was also with the context of AI. So how do you know you have a great data? How do you measure it? Yeah, these are the questions.
So one of the one of the things that's great about safety is that they have a really good presence across the construction projects. So there's almost always a safety on a large project. There's always a dedicated safety manager. If there are smaller projects, there's someone who's traveling between them, and the SVP in charge of safety for our civil division is really a stickler for making sure that everyone fills it out right. Uh, it's one of those things that safety, I think, is both well known for and probably pillared for as well. that they tend to be kind of sticklers for things being exactly right. So they do have really good information coming in. They have been focused on sort of transformation, and they're also collecting it in sort of interesting ways. One of the things that we implemented about a year and a half ago was driver facing cameras and driver behavioral analysis for safety and also coaching, and so the result is that we've got data not just in sort of the traditional inputs of someone filling out an inspection or an incident form, but also some really great photogrammetry and video, as well as AI processed activities. And so we're starting to get activity-based data, and that was certainly a challenge in sort of different ways than the implementation of the tool. It was more about the implementation for the people. We are a union shop, so we worked carefully with the unions to make sure that everyone understood what it was going to be used for, and it was not going to be used for performance evaluation in terms of their position, but coaching and better improvement and tracking as well. We've had forward-facing cameras for many years, but never driver-facing cameras.
It's quite interesting. Could it just recap, Adam? I think you touched upon a few points, but is there like a step process you guys typically follow when like a technology that you're evaluating comes onto your radar and you're like, okay, this is cool, but we want to now take this perhaps from desk or email proposal, whatever it might be, onto the job site?
So let me talk about the traditional ones, and then I can talk about my special Skunkworks project.
Okay, go for it.
Because I think that they're two different.
Okay.
The first are we really do what we do is we collect the potential software solutions, and we sort of discuss what those solutions might be, and then bring those together with these communities of practice groups and say, okay, do any of these align with what you're seeing? And those community practices groups also represent opportunities to collect from them what they're seeing. So it gives us an opportunity to sort of collect data, and then we say, okay, where could we utilize this? If it makes sense for us, is there a real problem? What's the cost? Where can we utilize this? And then we say, okay, let's go through all of the P's and Q's, make sure that we're, that the contract looks okay, make sure that the cybersecurity looks okay, and then let's run it on a new project, generally on a new project, and because that's a really good time to introduce it. Plus, generally speaking, we can also job cost it. So it's harder to sneak in a new technology after we already have a bid out. So we tend to also prefer to introduce a new technology with a new job because we're not disrupting how people are doing their work. We're integrating something new. We're seeing if it works, but we're not making a big change in the middle, which helps, I think, also with data consistency. So we really have a full idea of what the impact is going to be on a job. We did an evaluation of a tool that does punch list item work. Sort of improving that workflow in Procore, because of that punch. Going from a bunch of observations to punch is a real challenging process.
For visual?
No, it wasn't Provisual. I don't remember the name off the top of my head, but it ended up being, not a good fit with our processes. Mostly because oftentimes when we're doing a job, if in vertical space, we might be punching floor 1 while we're still doing finishes on floor 4. And so, we have sort of rolling items going into punch, and that was a problem because we had to keep reclassifying observations into this tool and turning them into punch list items. So it ended up not being as efficient as we needed to be. And, if it's not saving us time, effort, and providing us value, then, it, no matter how cool it is in terms of reporting you get, it's not probably going to be something that we want to adopt on.
What's the technical problem with painting at floor 4 and punching on the floor first?
Oh, well, the technical problem was that things were re-emerging from, well, the problem was we were having to rerun the process of pulling the observations that should become punch items on multiple times a week, because as we were finishing a space, it just wasn't an automated, easy process.
Okay.
And then some things also would emerge as an observation, but actually were punched on the previous floor, and it just caused a lot of consternation. They said, look, it's not enough. There's not enough value to justify this amount of work.
You got it.
Go ahead. And then, so we look through the entire life, and then we evaluate, we get feedback from the operations team on what they used. And I have a little spreadsheet that I look at the ROI. And I hate to say it, I do look at time. Even though I was talking to someone yesterday and he said, well, time doesn't show up on your balance sheet. I said, I understand, but it also is all about, sort of scalability of the organization. So, and allowing us to do things that are more important. But one of the things that I think I do that's relatively unique is I also discount the benefit, because I think that there's a training and change, a sort of an adoption curve. And so I don't think we don't get the most out of our tools for nearly 2 years. I mean, it takes a couple of years for it to settle into the way that people do their work. So until end of year 2, I discount the benefit in my spreadsheet.
That's very interesting. So can you elaborate on this? First of all, ROI, and the second question is regarding what you just said. It takes which is also ROI, I guess. It takes 2 years to see benefits of using the tool. Is it?
No, I don't think it's 2 years to benefit, but 2 years to reach the full benefit, because it takes time for people to, because you'll realize some benefit from a software when you first implement it, but until it becomes part of how people do their work, and it's not a conscious thing that they're having to adapt to or adopt, whether it's a new interface or whether it's new process, they really don't fully get everything out of the tool until the second year.
So it's actually change management, right? My intuition is telling me that this is a change management which takes place that takes so much time, right?
Some of it's change management, yes, I think, and I guess broadly thinking about that in terms of new interface, living in a new interface, which, when you think about one of the things that's a big consideration, you were talking about how to evaluate new software. We also consider the degree to which it's integrated into the platform that we live in every day in the field. Because that integration and the ability to integrate substantially changes that change management equation. Because if we have something that's relatively well integrated with, we use Procore as our sort of foundational platform for the field. If there's a good integration, if we can move data in and out of that relatively seamlessly, it means that the change management is less because people are operating in a familiar interface. I have more thoughts on the interface later, but we can talk about that.
Yeah, that was a good one. I remember when we chatted about that before. Yeah, I think we have got that layer.
Yes, I think so too. But that's something at our size, because we're not a huge organization and we all kind of do a little bit of everything. There are some substantial advantages to building as much into a platform as we can. There are disadvantages, obviously, like capture, and I guess you call it RDBMS jail, getting stuck with a particular platform. But there are also advantages to it, and for us, there are substantial advantages to living in a platform. So that also goes into our calculus of understanding, if it doesn't integrate with the platform, it's got to be really pretty amazing. And so, it raises the bar for companies who are not thinking integration first.
How else you measure ROI?
I do measure it based on, hard cost. So, is there a hard cost with software licensing? Are we removing something? For example, we're moving to different takeoff tools. So we're eliminating software licenses for older tools that we've used for a while. Is there a savings of time that we can actually calculate? And if so, what's the hourly rate of that we charge out to jobs? We have some nice charge out rates, so that's really helpful. And then is there a savings in terms of schedule or scope or something like that? So, and then the only one that really gets discounted is the time. I do my change management discount against time, because I think that's where, people are learning, people are trying to figure it out. Some people are more capable than others. And, if I could get that time, if I can get a sense of what the time is going to be, we're going to have some percentage of that the first year, but we're not going to have all of it.
And what is the interest of this ROI? Like, what is in interest? Is it like 20%, decrease 50, 5x?
So we get some crazy numbers, like very inexpensive solutions that have been,
You can give an example also.
So voyage control, for example, I think we saw.
We're not paid by voyage control in any way, but that's by the way.
I think we saw in terms of time saved, it was something like 4x. So I mean, it was really good. And we also implemented Procore's invoice management for our subcontractors, which was a huge time savings, but a much larger outlay of capital, as you might imagine. So, because it's Procore, everything is it was much less, but it was a critical item, and it has made a huge difference. So I mean, I think that was it was more like it was more like 1.5, but still enough that it was really substantially better. Because we went from we had this very slow process of getting the right bill number for our subcontractors when they invoiced us, and the Procore tool just made that beautiful and really integrates with all the other tools. And that has been it was a relatively complicated process to implement. So it took a lot of time and effort on the front end, because we calculated that as well in my ROI, is what's the setup. And then, but in the end, it's been absolutely, one of the things that people keep talking about as success.
A question on this, on your spreadsheet that you calculate ROI. Do you have like a typical template that you use, or each different technology has different template to evaluate that?
I try.
What I'm trying to ask if it's
I try to be
standardized.
consistent,
Mhm.
but oftentimes, so I end up adding columns, which is also frustrating. It gets a little bit wide.
I understand.
But I do feel like it's relatively consistent, and the nice thing is I feel like we've had more wins than we've had losses. Let's put it that way. So I'm very happy about that.
Yeah, that is pretty good. How many solutions do you think approach you like every perhaps day, if it's substantial, a week, like every top
goodness.
solutions?
Every week it's got to be 20. I mean,
Wow.
Here's a question maybe people will find interesting. What methods do these people use that make you go, I'm gonna check that one? Is it like an email that's like, it's got a funny subject line that makes you want to look at it?
funny subject lines never get.
No.
Also, if I know that that's a spreadsheet, if that's a template from Salesforce, I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah.
How do you know it's
they're very canned.
okay.
And then also there are some people who really are not good at it yet, and like have not, they're like, okay, they have the brackets. It's like insert name here. Oh, it says an insert name here. Like, oh, really? And you don't even know. Or if I get the same email twice,
Yeah.
the people who really drive me crazy are the people we're already buying from, and then somebody from another division reaches out to me like, oh, dude,
Guys,
Oracle is like notorious for this. They are so bad.
yeah, spray and pray, baby.
Oh yeah. Well, and part of it is they're just so siloed across their different divisions, talking to even in construction, they're siloed. It's really bizarre. But the things that really capture me are, someone saying, look, is this a problem for you? Like, and it's leading with the problem, and saying, okay, this is a construction problem that we know we've heard about. We know that people have. Would you be interested in talking to me? And then also, I will only contact you 2 more times. If I don't hear from you, I'll just call it good. And the worst thing that you can have is somebody saying, oh, well, I know you haven't reached back out to me, but just wanted to send this to the top of your inbox. Like, delete. Or, like, oh, here's $150 Amazon. Like, 2 things. 1, will not answer. And 2, if you know anything about construction, you know that we have very strict standards on what we can accept for gifts, because such a, the industry has a really bad reputation of sort of people being on the take a bit. And so we really pay attention to that. $75 is my max.
Yeah.
They cannot take more than $75. And so if it's $150, they have no idea about the industry.
I mean,
Well,
Adam, to your point, I guess it depends whereabouts in the position you are. Because you're at very top level, then maybe it's acceptable to take a bribe every now and then.
well, if you got these Amazon vouchers for 150, then just send them our way.
That's
I have none of them. I accept none of them.
Make it 150K.
Be 100. Well, it has to be worth enough for me to be able to lose my job. I used to be a teaching assistant, and somebody would say, "Well, how much would it take for you to give me the answers to the test?" I said, "Enough that I don't have to work in higher education again." We're not his own thing. But also, look, Martin, Owen, you know this. Anybody who leads with AI that is not an AI solution, just stop. 100%, please stop. Well, I call it AI washing. Like, we have Chat GPT integrated with, well, okay, what do you really do? Like, it's a search. Like, oh, great. Well, Chat GPT is actually a terrible search engine. So let's start with that. And second, if you like, there are solutions that are legitimately AI solutions and they market themselves appropriately. So, but every startup now is sending me something and saying they're an AI solution, and they might not be. And I really don't want another AI solution. I need something that
Quickly filter it that this is not AI solution.
Oh, well, you can tell very quickly. You're like, we're an AI solution that, I don't know what it, that prioritizes your, like Monday.com. Monday.com drives me crazy. Monday.com we actually use in our admin group. Our accounting team loves it. Great, happy for it. It's their checklist for for weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly activities. It works perfectly as a checklist. But they're like, and it's an AI tool. No, it's not an AI tool.
Come on, guys.
I mean, it's very clear that is not an AI tool. They might summarize what you did last month, but like I can look at the dashboard and do the same thing.
The messaging is disgusting.
It's tiring because like it's very clear that someone has told them that you're not going to get $1 from a venture capital firm unless you have a slide on AI.
That's very true. Adam, how do you currently evaluate the number of technology solutions that you have to manage within your organization? Is it a lot of them, or is it just enough, or are you feeling overwhelmed? And how do you manage it?
I think actually right now we're at a pretty good spot. We've reduced some of them. I have to say there are some consolidation that I like, but I don't think that the solutions are anywhere being delivered better. Just some of the spot solutions that we really like. Like this year, I think we have adopted, we're in the process of adopted 3 different solutions. And one of those replaces 2 others. It's a takeoff solution, and it's really great because we're reducing the number of licenses we have with 2 other ones that were really out there because those are the ones that somebody liked 10 years ago, and finally got them to decide that no, indeed, we don't need 3 different takeoff solutions. And then we have one that's that's sort of a this development with the very early stage venture capital backed firm, and then we have one that's really a more of an integration project, and we think that tighter integration between our ERP system and our product management solution is going to be a real easy win for us. So it's not an easy project, but it's an easy win.
Yeah, Adam, how do you think that tech providers should build better tech? Any thoughts on that?
It's a good question. One thing I think that they should do is always be cognizant of the design of the interface, that it makes sense for how people work in the field. Oftentimes there's a lot of bells and whistles in an interface that we could strip out and it would be fine. And I think that there's a lot of over engineering of interface and a lot of extraneous reporting and dashboarding because that's the cool hip thing. Really, we want something functional, which is something that works and something that facilitates a process. I think that the more stripped down interfaces would be nice.
Hey, mine was it? Someone we had on recently said that that from this point onwards, you should not be building a click and point interface.
Well, as you already know, you have much better memory than I do.
You remember
I-
it, so like that.
I am a big believer that this is where generative AI is going to make a big difference.
Let's go into that. I think that'd be an interesting.
So
I know Adam spoke about that.
So this is something, we were talking about sort of the standard intake for tools. This is my skunkwork project, my project that is outside the scope of all of that. I am working with a company in Europe to develop a voice interface with an LLM that will fill out a timesheet. Yeah. Where your foreman walks the job at the end of the day, sits in their truck and spends 5 minutes talking about what their day was like and fills out their time, the materials utilized, the equipment that was on the job, and the amount of work that was actually completed. And then it can do things like, oh, by the way, it rained today at your location because I have your GPS location. I'm connected to the weather app. Did you rain out, or were you able to work through the rain? Oh, by the way, and then as we go forward, it looks like your scopes in the next 2 days are going to be this. Do you have the right people scheduled? I mean, it suddenly becomes a lot more interesting and engaging.
Yes.
And also, these guys are not comfortable with technology. Many of them are more comfortable with technology, but the order that they're required to put it in and the boxes that they're required to fill out don't make sense to them, because they don't think about, this person did this amount of work. They think, okay, the crew worked this amount and we completed this and we used these pieces of equipment. And by the way, these are the 3 people who are operating equipment today. Oh, and these are the people who are carpenters. That's not the way our system works. We want everybody to put in the people first, and then their hours, and then the equipment. And it doesn't flow nicely in the way that they think about how their work was done. An LLM doesn't care what the order is. It doesn't, it's not bothered by the fact that it might take them 10 minutes to get around to saying, oh yeah, and by the way, Evan worked on the backhoe today. It doesn't matter. And then it can prompt and say, oh, by the way, you have Evan leaving at 4. Did he leave at 4? Oh yeah, he did. And he left at 4 because he had a doctor's appointment. And so they don't have to remember that what our payroll team wants is like a 7D on the timesheet for that. It knows doctor's appointment, he only worked 7 hours. It's a 7D. So it can translate from what the story is to what the database wants. Because, I believe that we're kind of in a phase of transformation in our relationship to technology.
Yeah.
Like we're where the audio industry was in the 1960s, which is we are being driven by the needs of the database, not by the needs of the humans. And so we fundamentally don't do well interacting with, point and click, it's something that we learn, but it's not good. And it also is very limiting. Like one of the things that I love about Copilot inside of Excel is it completely democratizes the ability of people to do data analytics. I love the fact that my CFO doesn't need to know R. He doesn't care, but he can do advanced analytics and say, okay, pull this data out, and it will do that. It will write the R for him, and then it will actually execute that query. And, that to me is where the LLMs have the biggest, I think, opportunity. I think that in that way, they smooth out some of these complex tasks, but they also give us an opportunity to have a different interface. And the really great part about this, and this is what excites me to no end, if I build the LLM interface correctly with open API calls, I don't care what the database is behind it. So the change required to move from one timesheet system to another becomes very small.
I strongly agree with this, and that voice is something that we need to operate on.
Voice is 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's so much screen fatigue or the password different apps, and it just cannot continue. Like we cannot just grow multiple apps, which are also, like you said, very limiting. Like how far are you think from this being more implemented on site rather than just talked about?
I have the LLM part. I do not yet have the API into my timesheet system. So that is my negotiation right now. It is a negotiation. It's not because it can't be done. It's a negotiation.
Yeah, fair enough. You could always imagine a situation where, like you said earlier, Adam, the foreman gets into his truck on a day, and like your phone picks up that you've got into your truck, and then like your agent calls you. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
what did you do
Yeah,
today?
exactly.
Like, how was your day?
Well,
What went wrong? Oh, okay, let me check that. Oh, let me set up a meeting with Thingy. You have a free slot at 3:00, so does he, and we can sort that
Yeah.
problem out. Da, 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 and so on and so
I
on.
mean, there are so many things we could do with that in so many different systems. I mean, oh yeah. And you're driving to the job site in the morning and it says, oh, by the way, don't forget that we have a big concrete pour today. Here are the 10 safety things that you need to think about. Got this truck coming at 10 a.m. Make sure that you're at rally point at 9:30 so we can ensure that all the finishers are ready. It could smooth that. There's the lean the lean folks always say, work slow to work fast to work smooth. And if we can start smoothing out that with connections that then start becoming much more open, I think it could be really fabulous.
Yeah.
And more
Right.
humans. I mean, look, what I love is people say, okay, how are LLMs trained? They're trained on stories. It's Mary had a little, and then it always says lamb. It's learned from our stories. And so we tell stories better than we fill out forms. So let us tell stories.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly these guys in the field, they're really great at stories. Like they'll tell you, 3 years ago, I did this exact same thing and I had this exact challenge.
Yeah.
Like, wow. Okay, let's do that and capture that.
Yeah.
Let's gather that story.
It's such valuable knowledge.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Adam, perhaps what do you think the future of the general contractor looks like in the next 5 to 10 years? Maybe we just hinted on a few things, but do you see any differences with how that perhaps the structure of a general contractor, maybe with the advent of things like robotics or other technologies that might, I don't know, reduce the reliance on a contractor and introduce robot subcontractor armies?
So I think sort of 3 things. One is I heard this week, and I thought this was really interesting about the potential that more and more design is going to become in the hands of the builders, that the tools are becoming easier and easier for the people who have done the building to visualize their own thoughts on design. And I think that that's interesting. And I think that means that, like pre-construction teams will have a lot more contact with the building teams and creating those initial designs. And I think that that's a good thing because in the end, we end up something more constructible and better. So I think that workflow is going to look a little different, maybe be a little less iterative, where we're going back and forth, that BIM coordination process, if we can make that shorter, would certainly save a lot of time and headache. And also maybe some licensing costs because boy, those are expensive things. I don't know if you priced for Vista lately, but it is very expensive.
Really?
It's a lovely, lovely tool, great tool, but very expensive.
Which one, sorry?
Revisto. The second thing that I think is that I feel like, in speaking about robotics, that robotics are really best when used as with a trained machine learning model in very specific conditions. So there are uses of robotics that I think are very good and that will continue to get better. Like, for example, I think unmanned drone flights with only a spotter is going to, that's here. It's being piloted right now in different places around the world. And I think that that's really critical. We need to be able to do that, grab that data and pull it in without having very, very well qualified people standing and actually just holding basically holding the drone command tablet to make sure that it doesn't crash. We need to do better with that. But I don't think there'll be subcontractor robot armies, except in prefabrication. I think we can do much more with prefabrication robotics. And I think that's where we're gaining traction. And I also think we're going to be doing much more prefabrication in our vertical group. We just are finishing a project where we had prefabricated load-bearing steel studs on the interior of a building, which meant, and those were all fabricated off-site. What that meant is that we had to be really careful with the embeds in the concrete, and that led to us making a really good standard operating procedure on our laser on our laser tools as we've been as we did concrete pours. So we actually shoot the site 3 times, once before the pour, during the pour, and then after, to make sure our embeds are correct, make sure the slope is correct as well. But that I think is going to lead to a real substantial improvement in that process. And then finally, I really feel like there's something about AI that's going to transform us, and I'm not 100% sure what it is. I think it's something in interface, but I'm not sure what it's going to look like. I'm excited, and that's why I'm doing this, these sort of skunkworks projects out in front to try to figure out if I can do it. And if I can do it, then I can do it in a lot of different ways. And I think I can make a real impact on our organization and hopefully share that with others, because I think there are real opportunities, but also real, again, it's so interesting because, I wrote an article this last week about the drawbacks of AI, and what we ought to be concerned about. And, like machine learning models are really great in situations that large language models are not, and vice versa. Machine learning models will beat you at chess every single time, but they will never, they'll never be able to beat you when you're trying to walk through a street in New Orleans and have no idea what it's going to be underneath it. They're just not prepared for that level of I don't want to say irrationality.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
But, where an LLM is really great about existing within chaos, because heck, it's read everything on the internet, and boy, if the internet is nothing if not chaotic.
Okay.
Yeah, last one from me would be about charging, and how the startups charge, which models of charging you like and which models you don't like. You already mentioned that Revisto, for example, is a great tool, but very, very expensive.
Yeah.
So if it's a great, why is it expensive? Because if it's great, it should be doing right ROI on what.
Oh, it does. It gives good ROI. It's just still painful. I mean, like, it can be expensive and painful and still be a really great tool. What I can tell you is that Procore has normalized the adoption of this per revenue dollar model, and it is just terrible. We all hate it, because in some ways, particularly if you're in a situation where you're seeing an increase in the rate, but also you're doing better financially, like more revenue, you're getting double taxed, and it's really challenging. So I personally I love an access license or a like a per admin license, and make that the appropriate number, and then you allow as many lead licenses as you want. I think that there are some license models from the good old days that work well still, but this Procore model seems to be more pervasive than it was, and I'm not really I'm quite sure why, but I'm not really sure any of us on the paying end are happy with it.
Okay. Okay, Adam. Owen, anything else?
I think we have got through most of what we planned to. So, yeah, Adam, where do you hang out? No, maybe not in the digital world, I should say.
In Louisiana and New Orleans.
In Louisiana, there's some really great jazz bars. So if you're in New Orleans, look me up.
If someone wants to get in touch with you after listening to this, what should they put in their email subject line?
Say, I listened to you on Bricks and Bytes, and Martin and Owen said that you should come.
And by the way, our AI tool solves XYZ.
My tool is sub-actualizing.
You know what people will do? They'll take the transcript from this now, get that subject line in, and then they'll come up with, I loved how you spoke about this and this. It was really great. And by the way, we do this and this.
If they take that much effort, I probably would be interested. I think that I don't think sales teams are putting in that much effort. I think they're shooting it through Salesforce's AI, which is okay, and going from there. It's interesting. Then there's so many different flavors. I don't know. So yeah, I would love, and also just LinkedIn. I mean, I really am. I'm active on LinkedIn every day. I write a lot there. I write a lot about AI. It's kind of my thing that I'm interested in right now. I write a lot about a lot of things, but lately I think I have 5 different articles up there on AI and its value and drawbacks and things. So in construction,
Who should read them?
I think executives who are interested in understanding AI better, because I try to explain it in a way that's not technical, but it provides a lot of examples. But also, I think practitioners, and if you want to talk to me, if you haven't read my articles and know what I think about it, and you are proposing something that I say is not really a good idea, you're probably not getting a good response from me.
Cool. Okay, Adam. Thank you very much.
It's lovely to talk to you, gentlemen, and look forward to listening some more to additional episodes as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure, Adam. Thank you.